I know we've covered the daiquiri on this channel before, but I wanted to do a follow-up and talk a little bit more about Ernest Hemingway and some of his wild escapades. Ernest Miller Hemingway was born on July 21st, 1899. He's been called the 20th century's most influential writer. His literature won him a Nobel Prize and a Pulitzer Prize. He was a journalist, wartime reporter, big game hunter, bullfighter, deep sea fisherman, and risk-taker adventurer extraordinaire. Throughout his life, he traveled the world, but was most at home on a bar stool. Ernest Hemingway is often associated with the frozen daiquiri, which he drank at El Floridita in Havana, Cuba. As the story goes, sometime in the early 1930s, after trying one of the bar's frozen daiquiris, Hemingway said, "That's good, but I prefer it without sugar and with double the rum." Double the rum. I guess Hemingway's aversion to sugar was because, like his father, he suffered from hemochromatosis, a hereditary disease where there's too much iron in the blood that can lead to diabetes, and I would imagine other diseases too. So the original recipe, created by legendary Cuban mixologist Constantino Ribalaigua Verte, as Hemingway requested, was a daiquiri without sugar and heavy on the rum. Basically a lot of rum with a splash of lime juice. Yo! Reportedly, Hemingway once consumed 16 of these high-test daiquiris in an evening. Whoa! That's a lot of daiquiris, Ernest. Hemingway also loved his martinis icy cold and bone dry. Are you ready for this? He made them with a ratio of 15-1. That's one big ass martini, or should I say one big ass glass of gin. Yeah. Oh, shit, man. He also liked his absinthe and wrote to a friend once saying, "Got tight on absinthe last night. Did knife tricks." Oh, I'm doing really well here. I don't know what other kind of knife tricks there would have been, right? I have no idea. Would you like flip them up and catch them in your mouth? That wouldn't be too smart. Anyway, moving on. Now, his major contribution to the cocktail world during his time in France was the potent blend of absinthe and champagne, known as Death in the Afternoon. With exacting details, Hemingway's recipe says to pour 1 jigger of absinthe into a champagne glass. Add iced champagne until it attains that proper opalescent milkiness. Drink 3 to 5 of these slowly. Yeah, you should. I guess the bottom line here is Ernest Hemingway is known as much for his writing as for his drinking and his excessive exploits. One of his adventures has to do with a plane crash. Actually, 2 plane crashes in 2 days. As a Christmas gift for his 4th wife, Mary, while on an African safari in 1954, Ernest Hemingway hired a small plane that flew them over the Ngorongoro crater and the mighty Murchison Falls in Uganda. As the plane dipped low above the gorge, so Mary could take photographs, the pilot, Roy Marsh, encountered a flock of ibises. Fearing that these black and white jungle birds were big enough to smash the canopy of the plane, he dove to avoid them, but hit a telegraph line. Now, forced to choose between a sand pit where 6 crocodiles lay basking in the sun or an elephant track through this thick scrub, Marsh chose the scrub. And the single-engine Cessna crashed into the bush. Mary was knocked unconscious with 2 ribs broken. Surprisingly, Roy Marsh, the pilot, was okay, and Hemingway only suffered a torn shoulder. The trio spent the night in the jungle, surrounded by elephants. Fortified by a bottle of scotch that had somehow survived the crash, and listening to the cries of hyenas and with hippos and crocodiles wandering around the riverbank, a search plane spotted the wreckage but failed to see any survivors. The next day, Hemingway, waving a swollen arm wrapped in a torn shirt, flagged down a passing tourist steamer going to Bushaba. A policeman and a bush pilot offered to fly them onto the Ugandan capital, Entebbe. Once aboard, the ancient plane rattled down the rutted runway. Then, the fuel tank exploded in fire and crashed. Pilot T.R. Cartwright helped Mary, Roy Marsh, and the policeman get out through the windows. Hemingway, well, he was too big to follow them. Twisted metal barred the door, and the flames were rising. Hemingway was trapped. He threw his head against the door again and again until he battered it open, but this time he suffered a traumatic brain injury with a fractured skull, but he shrugged it off. And it certainly didn't hinder his priorities, because the following day he was spotted coming out of the jungle in high spirits, carrying a bunch of bananas and a bottle of gin. He said, "My luck, she is still good." It wasn't long before the media got wind of the plane crashes, and then the word quickly spread around the world that the great writer Ernest Hemingway and his wife Mary were dead. With all the premature obituaries that had already been published, Hemingway said, "In all the obituaries, or almost all, it was emphasized that I had sought death all my life. Can one imagine that if man sought death all his life, he could not have found her before the age of 54? It was 7 years later, on July 2nd, 1961, that Ernest Hemingway killed himself from a shotgun wound in the head. When his wife Mary found him, a double-barreled 12-gauge shotgun lay beside him with one chamber discharged. Mary said that he had killed himself accidentally while cleaning the weapon. Yet, the curious, maybe haunting thought here is, Ernest Hemingway's last words spoken to his wife were, "Good night, my kitten." Well, on that sober note, let's make a cocktail. Ernest Hemingway was affectionately known as Papa in Cuba. His drink was originally named daiquiri, like Papa, and then later, Papa Doble. Years later, when the head bartender at El Floridita, Antonio Meilan, added maraschino liqueur and grapefruit juice to the drink, the name changed again to the Hemingway Special. Today, to make this drink more approachable for people with less of a sour palate than Hemingway, they often add sugar, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make the original drink that they made at El Floridita, the Hemingway Special. Okay, we're going to start with 3 ounces of rum. Should I measure? I don't know. All right, let's measure. Three ounces of Havana Cuban rum. I'm guessing you should use Cuban rum, considering this drink is invented in Cuba. Okay. So in Antonio Meilan's recipe, he called for maraschino liqueur. And all he uses is a bar spoon, or 5 ml. I'm going to throw that in our blender. Yeah. Doesn't seem like a lot, does it? I certainly can smell it. We're going to follow that up with some grapefruit. Just need to cut her up here. I guess we're gonna, you can't really use the press unless you cut it into small pieces, but we're not looking for a lot. We're looking for like an ounce. Oh yeah. And I think I'll measure this, and I think I'll fine strain this as well, because got a lot of pulp in there. There we go. There is an ounce ready to go. Yeah, baby. We're gonna follow that up with some lime juice. This one I compressed, and I'm only looking for a half an ounce. There it is, I'm thinking. Yeah, it's good. Half an ounce. And that's all she wrote. So, what we gotta do now is crush some ice. Turn her on. Let's crush some ice, baby. Ice crushing. Come on. That'd be an easier way. And I don't want a Lewis bag, because, you know, it takes so much ice to do this drink. Hang on. Perfect. So what we're looking for is about two cups of crushed ice. Yeah, thereabouts. Okay. So like I said, approximately 2 cups of crushed ice in the blender. Throw a lid on there, and you want to blend for about 5 to 10 seconds. That's looking good. Got to get a glass now. Antonio Meilan, he served it in a hurricane glass, just like that. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Look at that beauty. Look at that beauty. Sweet. And I don't know, I guess the garnish would probably have been lime, I'm assuming. So let's garnish it with a nice piece of lime here. Yeah. There we go. Oh, baby. And there you have it. The Hemingway Special. I'm thinking we need a straw of sorts. Yeah, oh, baby. The Hemingway Special. Let's give it a go. Wow. Bone dry. This is bone dry. This is the original version from El Floridita. I like it. The maraschino actually is really prominent, which is surprising because we only use 5 ml, right? A bar spoon. The grapefruit and lime are blending really, really nicely. The rum is there, but it's been diluted with the blending of the crushed ice. It tastes light. I'm going to say it, refreshing. Perfect for afternoon sipping on the patio. There's 3 ounces in here. 3 ounces of rum. It doesn't taste like 3 ounces of rum. That's the thing. It just presents itself as this bone dry cocktail. I don't mind it. I'm not sure I'd want any more than one by any means. This is El Floridita's original cocktail, the Hemingway Special, by Antonio Meilan. years later after Hemingway drank it. Right? The first time we tackled this, we made it completely different. You can check it out by following the link. Make them both and tell me what you think. Cheers. Well, I know what it needs. A good shake. I'm getting a little snookered on this sucker, and that's okay. What you gotta do is hit the subscribe button, check some other videos out, and make the Hemingway Special in honor of Ernest Hemingway.